How is everyone? Today we are making an amazing cookie. Now I'm making a very small amount because I got an order just for 1 dozen. So that's the other thing that I love about weighing your ingredients, because it's much easier to divide down to the amount that you want. Anyway, we are starting with, a note. I am going to provide you with the amounts that are going to be in the recipe in the description. So they're not going to match what you see here. So this is 4 ounces of butter, but I'm going to say 8 ounces of butter because that is 3 dozen cookies. And that's a good amount. You can, of course, double it. I don't know that I would go much more than that, just because it's a lot to handle when you roll the cookies in the towards the end. But we'll get there. Okay, softening butter. The butter needs to be soft. And unless you live in a perfectly a climate where, you know, temperature are in the mid 70s all the time, you're going to need to either help it come to room temp, and I used a microwave, or it's going to need to be slightly cooled down, but you would have to be in a really hot environment for that to happen. So we are going to assume, looking for my beaters, we're going to assume that you're using a microwave. If you are in a perfect climate for butter to come to room temp and be perfectly soft, that's amazing. So what you don't want to happen is for the butter to completely separate, and this had just started. Now the setting I used was the absolute very lowest or first setting on the defrost cycle. If you don't have that, you're going to have to watch it very carefully, because even on that very, very low setting, I only did this for 20 seconds and it had started to melt. So we're going to whip that up a little bit, and I am going to not make you listen to it. So I'm going to put this on hold, and I'll be back to add the sugar. Okay, that was easy. So that was 8 ounces of butter, and remember, I'm doing half of the recipe that I'm giving you. And then I've added 108 grams of sugar. This is for 3 dozen cookies. I'm going to beat this on high for a minute. So again, we'll be back. We're adding in flour. And I would recommend that you add this half at a time. So I'll go ahead and add half. I don't really have to do that since it's a small amount, but I will. And then I go ahead and mix in the cinnamon, which is half a teaspoon. And the salt, but I reduce it, and I will indicate this on the recipe in the description, because I use salted butter. And then we're going to gently incorporate it. So on low. It doesn't take very long, and you do not want to overbeat it. Once you get flour in, it's important not to over mix. The flour starts to it starts to develop the gluten, and we don't want that, especially with a shortbread cookie. So make sure you keep it to just mixed. And if you want to finish it by hand, that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and use the mixer. It will be slightly crumbly. But because we're going to refrigerate these in a saran wrapped roll, that will, it'll just all settle in, even out, so the dough's going to rest. Okay. See how crumbly it looks? But it holds together beautifully. Okay. Now we're going to mix in chopped walnuts. And I say rough chopped. So with cookies, especially refrigerator cookies that you slice, smaller is better than larger chunks. So just keep that in mind. And we are adding 95 grams of rough chopped walnuts and 85 grams of rough chopped cranberries. I'm going to get a metal spoon. Really, that's all there is to this recipe. So easy. So easy. So we just want to make sure that the walnuts and the cranberries are well incorporated. And then we're going to dump this out onto a piece of saran wrap. We do not have to preheat our oven at this point unless you want it on for an hour, because these will be in the refrigerator resting for an hour. Again, I am making half of the recipe that I am posting. So the length of the roll will be half the size. And you want to kind of put it out on the saran wrap, distribute it a little bit. And then we're going to form it. Excuse me a minute. We're going to form it into a log, if you will. A roll. So, using the saran, and you can use parchment as well. I have found that rolling them, it's just easier to handle with saran wrap. And I'm not a big fan of using plastic. Anyone who knows me knows that. So you do want to make sure this is like pushed together so that after it's refrigerated, when you go to slice it, it doesn't crumble. And this roll will be, like I said, twice this length when you make the recipe in the description. And oh, I hope you do, because these are amazing. And they're so simple, right? It's what, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, under 10 ingredients for a cookie. It's a shortbread, so no leavening agent. We're going to smooth out the flat edges because these cookies don't melt a lot. They just kind of take they end up the same shape as what you put on the cookie sheet to bake, only they swell up just a little bit. And again, you'll see that shortly. So I am going to you want to wrap the ends tight, tuck it under, make sure that it was just automatically wrapped pretty tight around because of the way I was using the saran. But that takes some practice. and you'll get there. Anyway, we're going to refrigerate this for an hour, and then we'll be back. We're ready. Oven is preheating to 325. It's been an hour, and I have let this sit out because it's really, really hard after it refrigerates. And I just think it slices better. So I do use my scale. Let's see, you can't see that, but okay. I guess you don't need to see it, but I do 20 to 21 grams for each slice. So we're going to take the end off. And again, my beautiful, amazing paring knife that is so incredibly thin. You need this to slice these cookies. And we're sawing through the cookie. 21. If they break or a piece falls out, it's easy enough to mold it. You know, sometimes I press it down on the cutting board and then flip the flat end up, or the flat side. You can see that this is a little thinner than this side. So it probably doesn't matter in the baking, but you know, I can tend to be a little OCD. So I make it a little more even. And I do like the way they're cutting after I've allowed them to sit for, I think it's been about 30 minutes. This one was only 16 grams, so I'm going to take some of this end and I weigh it. That's 20. See, would be a beautiful cookie. But I'm going to press this in to add the weight, and then I'm going to turn it over and still use that beautiful side. Another one that's not quite up to weight. So I usually get four rows of 3. These are half pan cookie sheets. And I will have a link in the description to them. I don't remember the size, the inches off the top of my head. And that's it. This one doesn't have a lot of cranberry showing, so I'll add one. My oven's not quite up to temperature yet because I haven't heard it ding. So what do you want to talk about? If this was live, you could ask questions. And I probably will do some lives down the road. My daughter, who I made this channel for, is living happily in Chicago. I miss her dearly. My son was recently, let's see, he was married in November to a lovely, lovely person, Sophie. She has a wonderful family, and they just called and told me that they're pregnant. So I am going to be a grandmother for the first time in September of this year, which is 2025. So I'm pretty excited. Are any of you grandparents? They live a couple hours away. So yeah, we'll see how that all works out. Anyway, the oven chimed, so we're going to put these in the oven, and we are going to bake for 16 minutes, and I'll be back. While the cookies are baking, I wanted to give you a tip. This is a cutting board that I keep separate from the one I use every day for onions and garlic and things like that. I do use wood. These are bamboo, and it will absorb some of the taste, flavor of those more pungent vegetables. So this, I only cut fruit on, and things like cookies, nuts, things to go in sweet food. So it's not big. I actually have a link to a set very similar to these in the description. So you can click on those links. In fact, I'd really appreciate it if you would consider purchasing from Amazon or from the links that I am offering you. These are the exact knives. And I love these knives. I want you to get these knives. You will not be sorry. It is so thin, and I do sharpen them regularly, but super sharp, super easy to sharpen, and they are amazing. I'm doing a video on all the uses because it's a set of 3 and they're all different shapes. So I'll post that video soon. Anyway, when the cookies are done, I'll be back. Okay, 16 minutes. And this was the last tray. And they were in the top of the oven where it's hotter. And they actually only baked for 15. The other tray, baked for 16, was in a different position, and it needs another minute. So it's all working out. And every oven is different. So I would start checking the cookies. You want them to be actually however you prefer them. But I recommend, like this, I would say this is perfectly cooked. It's gives slightly in the center when touched, just lightly golden around the edge. This one is probably a little bit too brown for me. It's golden all the way around, about a 1/4 inch in. You may like them that way. We're all different. That's the beauty of this world. Anyway, these are cranberry walnut shortbread cookies, and they are delicious. I highly recommend you make them. And I would love it if you would support me by not making a purchase you don't need, but if you need stuff, purchasing through the links in the description. All right. Thank you so much for following me.